everybody. I'm Christiana Gaudet. I'm here today to answer an email from Elizabeth, but as part of that, to give you some information about tarot interpretation that I think will be helpful for a lot of you. So Elizabeth is a new tarot reader. She's working with the Wildwood Tarot, which, as she points out in her email to me, is a little different from your standard traditional deck, be it a Crowley or a Waite or even a Marseille. So one of the first questions we're going to tackle here is, does it matter to the interpretation the deck you use? And here's what I'm going to say about that. When I'm interpreting her cards, she's already done an interpretation. She's stumped on a couple of cards. She wants to know what I think. I am going to bring my full knowledge of each card to my interpretation, regardless of what deck she used. This is also true regardless of what deck I use. We all have decks that we feel kind of open us up psychically, decks that speak to us with a voice that we really enjoy. But I got to tell you, in my mind, when I think of the Six of Swords, I think of the Six of Swords in 4, 5, 6 different decks. And when a card comes up in a reading for me, it matters less what deck I'm using and more what strikes me about the cards in that moment. So I may be reading with a Waite deck, but I may think about what Crowley had to say about a particular card. Or I may be reading with a more fanciful deck, but I may remember what the image is from the Waite deck. I call this the deck in my head, and that's always the deck that I use to do a reading. Now, that said, it's true that different illustrations will evoke different things. Sometimes the way we get our information in a tarot reading is that our eyes and our spirit can be drawn to a particular portion of a card, a particular aspect of a picture, and that informs our intuition. That creates our interpretation. So it's going to be very true that different images are going to draw us in different ways. However, when I'm trying to assist someone with their own interpretation, I'm not concerned with what they saw in the images or what I would see if I was looking at those images. I am simply concerned with the academic task of making sure that this person has considered everything that is presented from an interpretive perspective. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So Elizabeth has used a spread called the Loving Cup Layout. And when we look at this spread, it is very clearly a spread for someone in a relationship questioning the relationship. Let's take a look. She says that she understands all of the cards except the last two. And the way this spread goes, I can show you what she sent me. You can see my notes on it as I've started to work it through. So we start here, let's see, here we go. We start here at the bottom and work our way up. So there are actually two final outcomes, one for you, one for your partner. And it's those final outcome cards that have concerned her. At the same time, she shared with me all the cards that she got and didn't really talk about how she interpreted them. She just sort of mentioned that she understood them. Well, I see a bunch in those cards, so I really want to start from the beginning because there's an interesting pattern that is shown up. And because Elizabeth is a new reader, she may not yet understand to look for that pattern. Now, I'm going to use the card names as they are named in the Waite tradition. I recognize that in the deck Elizabeth is using, the cards are named differently. For the purposes of this exercise, though, as I said, I'm going to use the traditional names. So let me share with you what we have here. And honestly, if you have some thoughts about these cards for Elizabeth, go ahead and chat them in the comments. So card 1, the position is the current state, and the card that comes up is the Four of Swords. Now, in the Wildwood Tarot, This card apparently is called rest. The current state is a state of rest. So that would suggest, and she actually said something in the email that made me think this is true, that this may be a relationship that's on a break. When we see the Four of Swords to talk about a current situation, we're taking a rest, we're taking a break. My guess is these two people have not been communicating so much recently. Now, the next card up is the partner's current position. This is the Five of Swords. The key word for that in the Wildwood Tarot is frustration. So for me, Five of Swords can be more than frustration. It can actually be a battle. And so right away, the state of the relationship is not, not much is happening. Your partner, Elizabeth, is frustrated, maybe angry, maybe there's been a fight, maybe you guys have been fighting and your partner is still kind of licking wounds. Now we get to the nature of the issue, and we have the Four of Pentacles. Now, when we look at the Wildwood, the Four of Pentacles is protection. But let's talk about what that really means. The Four of Pentacles can be certainly a card that says you need to protect yourself. It's also the Miser's card. It can talk about selfishness, about keeping what you have for yourself and not sharing it, or having fear that you yourself won't have enough. It can also be a card of protecting your resources, protecting yourself. It can also be a card of having good boundaries. So the nature of the issue, when we're talking about an issue in a relationship, my guess is someone is behaving in a selfish or self-centered way, or someone is not able to communicate their needs appropriately, or not able to understand the other person's needs appropriately. So that seems to be the problem here. Now, here we start getting into the double cards that form the cup. And we have your desires, your partner's desires. So Elizabeth, your desires, the Six of Swords. And this says to me that you just want to move past this. You want to use logic. You want to use conversation. You want to move past this. So in Wildwood, the Six of Swords is called transition, but I think we need to look a little deeper. Crowley called this the card of science. When we look at the weight illustration of the Six of Swords, what we see is literally sailing towards smoother waters. You can see there's choppy water in the forefront, and the direction we're sailing in, the water gets smoother. So it's not just transition. And this is where I have a problem with single word keywords, because I think they can be very limiting. So your desire, Elizabeth, is to be smart about this. Why is this the card of science for Crowley? Because we are using logic rather than emotion. We're trying to be logical here. Now, your partner's desire is the Queen of Pentacles. So this is interesting because typically the Queen of Pentacles would be a person. Now, again, in the Wildwood deck, the court cards are typified by animals, and the Queen of Pentacles is the bear. So there are some other qualities there. I think that in a deck like Wildwood, it's easy to see the non-people interpretations of the court cards, maybe even easier than seeing the people, and that's so different than the weight or the Crowley structures, isn't it? So, when we look at the partner's desire as bear or the Queen of Pentacles, and we see the nature of the issue as the Four of Pentacles, it makes me wonder if the partner is being selfish, if the partner kind of wants to hang on to whatever the resources are, or doesn't want to share energy or something of that nature. On the other hand, we also have to wonder if the Queen of Pentacles, the partner's desire, might actually be you, Elizabeth, if you are the bear, if you are the Queen of Pentacles, and the partner really does desire you. Now, equally, the Queen of Pentacles could be a whole other woman. The Queen of Pentacles could be the partner's mother. There could be an issue there. So depending on your situation, I'd like you to look at those cards, your desire versus the partner's desire. Now, if we look at it that you are the Queen of Pentacles, you want to move forward, the partner wants to be with you, that looks good, right? Of course, if the Queen of Pentacles is another woman entirely, that doesn't look so good. And if the Queen of Pentacles is more referring to selfishness in your partner, that could be a concern. So I did want to point out, though, in these cards so far that you have a really interesting run. 4 of Swords, 5 of Swords, 6 of Swords. And when we see something like that in a spread, we have to interpret it regardless of the order in which these cards show up or the positions they show up in. This is an added interpretation to give us some depth. First of all of those Swords cards, we're all in our head here. There could be anxiety, there could be communication issues, there could be issues of what is true and what is not, but it's all in the head, not in the heart, and that can be kind of an issue. But when we see going from 4 to 6, in the 4 we see retreat, in the 5 we see a battle, and in the 6 we see forward motion. So this tells the story of a relationship, breaking up, getting back together again, breaking up, getting back together again. It's possible this has happened a few times, and now we're deciding, are we going to stay broken up or will we once again get back together? Truth is, I think both of you really want to, but can you or should you? Those might be different questions. So the other thing is we have 2 4s, the 4 of Pentacles and the 4 of Swords. Now the problem with 4 is this. 4 is a number of stability, but it's also a number of being stuck. It may be that each of you is stuck in your own uncomfortable comfort zone. What do I mean by that? Well, 4 can really talk about a comfort zone, a place where we're comfortable, we don't want to move out of it to grow. But just because we're comfortable in our place doesn't mean we're happy there, doesn't mean it's really a comfortable place to be. So ideally, Elizabeth, both you and your partner would kind of look at that and say, okay, well, in what way am I ready to grow? Now, we have challenges. There's your challenge and there's your partner's challenge. So your challenge, Elizabeth, is the King of Cups. Now, when we look at what the King of Cups is, it's the heron. Okay. So, I'm not even sure what kind of symbolism we would associate there. Obviously, it's a water bird because it's the King of Cups. That kind of makes sense. But how is the King of Cups your challenge? Couple of things. The King of Cups could represent your ideal loving partner, and your challenge is to have that or to turn your current partner into that. It could be for you, the King of Cups does represent your partner and you really want to be with that person. The King of Cups on an esoteric level, and I think Heron really fits with this, really can be about the highest expression of love. That you want to do the most loving thing, the most appropriate thing on an emotional level, on a loving level. Now, the partner's challenge is the 3 of Wands. I'm thinking about this as a challenge, King of Cups as a challenge. I would say this too, Elizabeth. You might be challenged in dealing with your own emotions. You might not yet be a master of your own emotions, and that itself may be your challenge. Partner's challenge is the 3 of Wands. That's about success. And so the partner may be hung up. Your partner may be hung up with a job issue, with a career issue, with a financial issue, with a creative issue, or this may be about the relationship wanting it to be successful. But there is something about your partner and your partner's relationship to success, or should I say your partner's relationship to the concept of success. And that seems to be a problem here. So now we see the outcome. Elizabeth, your outcome card in the deck, and these are the two that have you stumped. This is why you reached out to me. Okay, so here we are. I've got all these papers trying to figure all this out here. So your card for your outcome is the Lynx. And the Lynx is the Page of Pentacles, or in Wildwood, the Page of Stones. So your outcome is the Page of Stones. This could be a card of advice telling you to look at what is real and what is practical. It could say that you're going to school or that you are learning something new, especially something practical. How this relates to the relationship, though, is interesting. This is certainly not a romantic card. It is a very youthful card, and it may suggest that this whole relationship has been about teaching you what works and what doesn't. Now, your partner's outcome, your partner gets the Fool. And I think it's interesting that this is the one major arcana card in this entire spread, and it goes to your partner's outcome. Now, I see the Fool as a very positive card. This would suggest that your partner is beginning a new journey. And what is interesting is these are both youthful cards. While we might see the Fool as a more important card because it's the Fool, both the Page and the Fool have this youthful thing in common. Now, the Page, being Page of Pentacles, is much more grounded than the Fool. But I think it's interesting that these are both youthful cards. If you want to try to make this work, you need to recognize that no matter how old you are chronologically, in this relationship, the two of you are very young. You may be both acting in an immature fashion, and you may want to be careful about not having that continue. The advice may be, if you want this relationship to work, you both have to come to it from a new perspective, not doing what you've done before, but coming to it as if it is a new relationship. However, the Fool for your partner is a little troubling if you want the relationship to go forward and to work. The advice, of course, is if you want to do that, do it as something new. Recognize neither of you know what the heck you're doing, and so try to come to it with the student's mind, with the open mind, coming to a new relationship with a new mind. That's what you would each need to do in this relationship to make your minds new and make the relationship new. That's the advice if you want to make it work. On the other hand, there is nothing here that says it should work or it will work or you must make it work. And there is something here that sort of leaves the story, Elizabeth, with you there focusing on what you need to learn and what you need to do, and your partner just going off on a great journey, on a great adventure, perhaps on an adventure that your partner must go on as part of development, as part of karma, as part of destiny. So this doesn't look like there's a lot of anger or a lot of animosity. We saw that in the beginning with the Five of Swords, but it looks like if you guys choose not to stay together, that you would be able to let each other go and honor that each of you have a journey. On the other hand, we need to be careful here because the Fool is a more powerful card than the Page of Pentacles. And I wonder if there has been a dynamic in the relationship or with either of you that makes your partner's journey more important than your own. So those are some things to think about, Elizabeth. I hope you found that helpful. Folks, if you have an issue with the reading that you've done and you want me to take a look at it, I will. Here's what you got to do, though. Tell me the positions, tell me the cards, tell me your interpretation. Otherwise, you're just getting me to give you a tarot reading on YouTube. And here's the thing. I do tarot readings. It is my full-time profession. It's how I pay my bills. So if you want a reading with me, we can do that with phone, with Skype, with FaceTime, or here if you happen to be in Florida, this is my office in Palm City on the Treasure Coast. So if you'd like to book a reading with me, just give me a call, 561-655-1160. You can message me, you can text me that number, whatever works best. If you want me to tackle a reading or answer a question here on Facebook, you can email me. I thank you all so much for being here. And if you haven't yet, please hit subscribe. I'd love to see you here on my YouTube channel.